I will share with you from my experience in speaking with local employers here in Australia, what their three biggest concerns about international students are. So first of all is actually a lack of local experience, particularly for those industries such as engineering, where there are local regulations. Now, unfortunately, that's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Because how can you get local experience unless someone gives you either a job or at least an internship? So we'll come back to that, and certainly the intent of this talk is to help you actually get that job in the first place. Now, the second biggest concern the second biggest assumption that a lot of Australian employers might have about international students before you get to that interview is exactly the things that you mentioned just now, which is how are your language skills. So if level of English is a big concern to them, again, address this up front. A very practical way is you can do a video like what I'm doing right now. You stand here with a nice clear background and you do a piece to camera. You record yourself speaking fluently and you can put that on your LinkedIn profile, or you might even include a link to that clip in your cover letter. So up front, people know, yes, this person has no problems when it comes to communicating in English and with an accent that people can understand. Now, the third question that Australian employers always have about international students, but they may not necessarily voice it, is this question: are you a good cultural fit for our organization? That is really a very big concern, and I'd like to drill down into that question a little bit more, because that's where our focus is, both in Project Global Citizen as well as in the corporate work that I do internationally. So this question about will you be a good cultural fit for our organization, there are three top concerns that keep coming up. The first one is, how reliable are you at getting things done on time? Because international students are notoriously flexible with their time compared with Australian students. Now, obviously, that's not always the case. You personally may be very good with your time management, but yet, from an employer's perspective who hasn't yet met you, this may be something that is on the top of their mind. The second concern that they may have, which they unfortunately may not voice to you, but it's probably on their minds, is this: will you demonstrate self-initiative? And by that, what I mean is, when there are situations where the supervisor, the manager, or the boss has given you an overall direction, do you have that self-initiative to go and actually get things done, even though you haven't been told specifically what to do? And of course, a different angle to that is when things go off track, which invariably they do. What do you do to take self-initiative to get things back on track? And unfortunately, this is something that for many international students is not something that would come naturally, because from a cultural background in many countries, you are not actually encouraged to take self-initiative. You are instead, there's often a greater cultural focus or expectation that you follow the orders of the boss to the letter. Exactly do what you are told to do. So that is a concern that you may or may not realize that Australian employers have. And the third concern that I would like to share is this one: can you speak up when required? Can you speak up when required? And this is the situation that, again, a lot of local employers are concerned about. Sure, as an international student, I know that you're very diplomatic and you've probably got fantastic customer service, for example. But when things turn bad, when things get really difficult, when you've got a customer who is outspoken, or you've got a colleague who has a different opinion, will you speak up when it matters? Because as an Australian employer, I expect you to speak up, and I'm not sure that you will actually be able to do that. So these are the top three concerns that I want you to keep in mind as you're writing your letter, as you're preparing for your job interviews. Because if you don't address these concerns up front in your cover letter, in your interview, then unfortunately you also may risk that that problem of being misunderstood by local employers because they are worried that you're not familiar with these unwritten rules about Australian culture. So let me kind of extend on what Amanda was talking about earlier. Amanda was talking a lot about cultural awareness and gave plenty of examples of how you already have some fantastic experience in cultural awareness, potentially at an even higher level than than our domestic students. Now, what we focus on in our work, both at Project Global Citizen and again in our corporate work, is we go to that next level, which is cultural intelligence. So being aware is absolutely the first part. The second part to that is knowing how do you leverage or how do you respond in different situations so that you can work effectively with people from across all organizations. Now, cultural intelligence really relies on you understanding those unwritten cultural rules that may explain why someone is behaving the way that they do. And so that's what we focus on here at Project Global Citizen, understanding those unwritten cultural rules. And really, this is so important when it comes to securing local employment, but also global employment. If you intend to work for an international company or you intend to work around the world. Now, in terms of the importance of cultural awareness and cultural intelligence, it's not just Amanda and I that are talking about this. I can assure you that in this global environment, in the corporate sector, there is a lot more emphasis now on seeking job candidates who have cultural intelligence and who do have cultural awareness. In fact, I'd like to read out to you this quote by HBR from the Harvard Business Review. And this article was all about leadership in the 21st century. And I'll just read it to you. The number one skill every 21st century manager needs is cultural intelligence, the ability to successfully work across cultures.